Good morning. This is Courage Anakwesi, Mama Curry 57, the Project Me Mama. We started a conversation this week about the classroom, what happens in the classroom, the teacher's responsibilities in the classroom, and what we ought to do in the classroom. We talked about we actually started this conversation with the statement that the teacher is responsible for learning in his classroom. The teacher is responsible for every child learning in the classroom. That looks like a very wrong statement, but I'm correct. And I'm going to share with you why. So today we want to look at the child. The child in your classroom. Do you know the child in your classroom? What are the things you are supposed to know about the child in your classroom? How does the child learn? Do you know? A lot of people come into the classroom with little or no knowledge of the child. That is disaster, because you can't help the child unless you know the child. So we want to start from that point. I am also a gardener, and that comes very handy for me. When I pick a seed to sow, I do not help the seed to grow. I do not grow the seed. The seed grows itself. But I provide enabling environment for the seed to grow. It's the same thing I do in the classroom. The child is a seed. All that the child requires to learn is already embedded in the child by God. So I really am not responsible in that sense for the child learning. The child will learn whether I'm there or not. The child will learn. If you take language, for example, you really didn't teach your child how to speak any language, but the child picked it from the environment and learned. So the child will learn because the child has certain tendencies in him that causes him to learn. So when a child comes into my classroom, I must be aware of these tendencies. For example, communication. The child wants to communicate. Order. The child loves order. Exploration. The child loves to explore. These tendencies will help the child to adapt to whatever environment you place the child. And my classroom is an environment. So the child is able to adapt to my classroom because of the tendencies that the child has. But I need to know this to help me help the child. So we come to one important fact. What has the child come to do in my classroom? It's not information the child came to gather in my classroom. No. There are other places where the child can gather information. So that's the key question. What has the child come to do in my classroom? Do you know? What is the child doing in your classroom? Do you know? You think it's just to come and learn 2 times 2? What is the end result of 2 times 2? Do you know? You need to know. So today we want to look at what I am and what the child is. I want to just read some of the things I jotted down for myself. I am a gift to my classroom. I have the responsibility to equip every child in my classroom with the tools that will help the child succeed. So what I do to that child is equip the child not necessarily giving the child information. So how do I equip the child? These are some of the ways I can equip a child. What do I do in the class? What I do in the classroom is not providing information, but to provide the structure that helps the child succeed. I provide the structure that helps the child succeed. And what are those structures? We are going to keep looking at them. How to do. What to do. When to do. Why to do. Who to do. I help the child. Let's take for example. I want a child to learn the multiplication table, for instance. Why do I want the child to learn multiplication table? So that the child can solve some problems. Not just the problems in the classroom, real life situational problems. And so, I can't jump into multiplication. I have to have something I must have done before I get to multiplication, for example. So, even if I want to even teach that multiplication, I, in my classroom, will always want to show the child how to multiply. I show. I don't just go to the board to give the information to teach, to download for the child. I show the child how to find the proper way to multiply. I show the child. What does it mean when you say 2 times 7? I have things to show to the child that he will understand. So when I have shown that child what it means when I say 2 times 7 in real terms. If I ask the child 14 times 6, the child would apply that knowledge that he has gotten from 2 times 7 to 14 times 7. He doesn't need me at that time because I have shown him how. So one of the first things you think in the classroom as a teacher, when you walk into the classroom, is your objective of whatever lesson you are doing, of the classroom. What's the objective of the classroom? First of all, what's the objective of your lesson? What do you want to achieve? Most people don't understand it. It is not just what you note down in your lesson planning. You just find somebody else's lesson plan, you copy it down, or you just write anything. The reason you do not say in your lesson plan that the child knows is because it's not a question of just information. It's a question of doing. It's a question of doing. How do you evaluate your children? If there were no examination, how would you evaluate your child? That brings us to the question of what is learning? I'm going to leave you there today. Think about it. What is learning? What do you regard learning to be? How would you know that a child has learned? You need to tell me. You also need to know that the child is an individual. You don't class all the children in your class. You just come, you think everybody learns at the same pace and at the same rate and the same way, and you just begin to talk. It doesn't work. In your classroom, you have the okra seed. In your classroom, you have the tomato seed. In your classroom, you have the corn seed. Do you plant them the same way? No. The depth that you take the seed to is different for each seed. How you position your plants to the sun is also different. There are some plants that are called nightshades. You don't put them directly under the sun. Otherwise, they will die. There are some plants, you overwater them, they will die. It's the same way in the classroom. You have to treat each child as an individual. You have to be observant to know how each child learns. It's not such a hard work. If you're an observant teacher, you will know. And if you have set your structures right in your class, you will know. You can't learn under a disorderly class. Some people have no structure in their classroom. Anything goes. Anything can go in my class. So anything can go. We have our structures. We have our rules and regulations. A place where there is no rule is a chaotic place. There's no modernization that has cancelled rules and regulations. In a class, there must be rules and regulations. Why? So that everyone can learn. Once these rules are followed, everyone can learn. So those are the structures you first put in place before you start instructing. You must have those structures in place. The children must know that these are acceptable codes in the classroom, and these other ones are non-negotiables. We can't do them. They must know what is not done in your class. They must know what they bring to the classroom, how they prepare for a lesson. We don't jump into a lesson. We prepare before we come to the lesson. So the child has his role, the teacher has his role. My children know how to come into my classroom. Once when I was a year 2 teacher, I said to my children, no sharpening of pencil in my classroom. They know. No sharpening of pencil. We don't use the eraser. So what do? We come with our pencil case with 5 sharpened pencils. That tells me before the end of the day, if you are a very destructive child and all that, you would have finished your 5 pencils. So I need to give you my own 6th pencil. So I will sharpen my pencils. They are on my table. So I've already taken distractions and disruptions away from my classroom. I've already taken 50% of it away. So nobody is going to be getting up to go and sharpen pencil or bring a pencil for me and say, Mr. Nakwese, sharpen this pencil for me. I've already taken care of that. We discuss it. It's not just a rubber stamped rule. We talk about why we don't need to sharpen our pencils in the classroom. We talk about preparation. We talk about the farmer who is going to his farm, how he needs to have his cutlass and hoe before he leaves his house to the farm. I have this discussion with my children. They come to that understanding that they need to bring their pencils to school. Then a parent called me. She was very offended that I asked the child to bring sharpened pencil, that they pay for all resources in school. Why would the child bring pencil? I took my time to explain to her why the child needs to come to my classroom with 5 sharpened pencils. The school has, but your child is coming to school. Your child should be ready for work from your house to school. After my discussion with her, she agreed with me, and I had my 5 pencils in the child's pencil case. I always like why, and I always take my time to explain why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? I take my time to explain it. I enjoy explaining why. So, and I enjoy telling stories to my children. And I enjoy working with them to come to a compromise of how our environment will be. Nobody learns in a chaotic environment. I'm very disturbed when I get into your classroom and I hear you shouting, keep quiet, keep quiet. That tells me a lot of things about you as the classroom teacher. We have to have rules, we have to have regulations. So, we first have all of this ready before we're even thinking of learning. How do you handle my books in the classroom? We discuss it. How do you treat one another while the lesson is going on? We have discussed it. We have agreed on it. So when we begin the lesson, before I even begin the lesson, I share my expectation for that lesson with you. I put it on the board. At the end of the lesson, you will be able to do this, you will be able to do this, you will be able to do this. Not you will be able to tell me. It's a doing thing in my classroom. So the children know what they should do at the end of each lesson. So they are prepared. We've shared the expectations. They are prepared. And I would also make them tell me what their success criteria will be for that lesson. How would you know at the end of this lesson that you have succeeded as a student? They will give me 1, 2, 3. So you see, why I'm able to do that is because I understand the child. I understand the human tendencies. I understand certain principles that work in the classroom and certain theories that guide learning. I don't just walk into my classroom to fumble. I know when to scaffold the child. I know when to pull back. Again, that is because I am not just a teacher, I am also a learner. Do you learn, or do you just assume that you are Mr. Know-all? You just come and teach because you gathered some information you want to share with the children? Again, our major questions for this section is, how would you evaluate a child without formal assessments? How would you evaluate a child? I'll see you tomorrow. We'll discuss more tomorrow. Have a pleasant day.